Welcome back to the podcast where we celebrate innovation for a happy planet. I am your host, Abigail Carroll. This is the last of our series of 3 episodes where we meet the winning entrepreneurs from Sustainable Ocean Alliance's Ocean Pitch Challenge that takes place annually in Paris, France. Today we meet the winner of that challenge, Damien Demoor. Damien is founder and CEO of Greenov, a French climate venture studio based in Nantes, France, and he is here today to talk to us about his award-winning Subsea Quieter solution. Welcome to the podcast, Damien.
Thank you for welcoming me, Abigail.
Well, it's lovely to have you here. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You have an accent.
Yeah, I'm Damien Demoor. I'm based in France. I'm a French engineer that is an ocean innovator.
Now you have your own company called Greenov, and you have a product that is getting a lot of attention right now called the Subsea Quieter. What are you trying to solve with this project?
Yeah, the Subsea Quieter addresses the issue of underwater noises created by maritime works. As you might know, underwater noises have been the subject of numerous scientific publications over the last 25 years and are now recognized as one of the worst maritime human pollution. Indeed, human activity produces huge noises that propagate almost without attenuation in the water, and 4 times faster than it means that we can perceive noise up to thousands of kilometers. And of course, animals that use this type of noises in order to communicate, to feed, to find some prey, are usually impacted by these noises. What we have to say also is that prey driving, which is one of the main type of maritime works, including for the foundation of offshore wind farms. So pipe driving create one of the most intense level of noise into the sea water, up to 260 dB. And this is propagating for a very long distance. To simplify that, in order you can easily understand what it means, it's more an equivalent that human pain threshold, and even which is or immediate physical damage threshold. It means that for humans, this type of noise would be forbidden by the regulation, otherwise the death of humans is a trouble. So this level is also responsible for major impact, including also the death of animals under the water. And knowing that it's planned right now to install 35 times more offshore wind farms than today by 2050. So protecting the ecosystem for this huge level of noise is vital for all species, but also for mankind, because you know that mankind depends usually on the health of oceans. So that's why EU and some countries like USA initiated a regulatory process with, for example, in Europe, the Maritime Strategy Framework Directive, and with the new European Biodiversity Strategy. And this more and more strictest regulation usually impact coastal and offshore works companies that have to comply with this increasing level of regulation.
The people who are not in the marine space who are listening, why is noise so impactful? I think it's really easy to understand why a fishing rope might kill a whale, or something like that. But what are the can you explain a little bit why and how noise is having an effect on marine life?
It really depends on the type of species. For example, for cetaceans, they've got like us, they've got some hearing tools, and these hearing tools can be destroyed as us with a high level of noise. From some of the species like fishes, it's not the hearing that is destroyed, it's blood inside the air blood inside the fishes that can be destroyed by the sun. So it's really depends on the type of hearing for each animal, but and this level of impact depends, of course, on the level of noise. If it's I would say a reasonable level of noise, it will just be masking, like, for example, when you are discussing into a noisy restaurant. But once the level of noise increase, we switch to behavioral compartment disturbance. Then we switch to hearing capability, which is the top or full disabilities, and then the death by the destruction of the hearing tools of the animals. Knowing that animals mostly have this value to communicate, because into the water, a lot of physical value cannot be used, like for example the radio, the light, and things like this do not cannot be used by animals because they do not propagate for a very far distance. So the only thing that they can get in order to communicate and whatever is the noise. So they use the noise, and they are made for using the noise. And when we introduce this huge level of noise, at the better we disturb them, at the worst we kill them.
So we have this urgent problem because we're growing offshore wind and we're using the ocean more and more as an industrial resource. So tell me, what is your solution? How are you going to go about reducing this noise from these pilings?
Yeah, as you fully understand, the impact of noise depends on its level. So all human activity create huge noises in the sea. For example, vessel create also noises when they travel the seas. But the worst one, the one that can kill animals, is the one of pile driving, which is very high. So in order to fight against this type of very noisy noise, we launched so the Subsea Quieter. It's a development that was launched in 2017 within Naval Group, which is a French leader of naval defense that produces a submarine for more than 20 navies in the world, with the strongest requirement in acoustic dissuasion. And so at this time, the initial requirement was to find a solution inspired for this submarine technology that can go beyond the performances and drawbacks of existing noise mitigation systems. So the noise mitigation system are this system that can mitigate the level of noise of pile driving and other type of coastal works. We wanted to develop a solution which would enable decision makers to decide to protect all their coastal and offshore works, although this protection remains today the exception. This means that only a few of coastal and offshore work currently use this type of solution. In order to achieve this high targeted impact, our solution must have at this time at least 5 advantages. Of course, the level of noise attenuation. We need a very good attenuation even for low frequency, because you might know that the lower the frequency is, the more complex it is to mitigate and to contain these frequencies. And this low frequencies is mostly concerned for big whales, which are communicating at these low frequencies. So that's very important to be able to mitigate low frequencies. We are talking about frequency around 50 Hertz, so that's very low. We have also to design a system that is easy to adapt and to use for each maritime work type, of course, coastal, offshore, and whatever. Resistance to the tide, current, and depth, of course, depending on the place we want to use it, with a lower cost and, if feasible, a tiny energy consumption. So that with these 6 targets in mind at every stage during 7 years, because it's 7 years that we launch the development. So we have developed this solution, which is a flexible inflatable membrane, which is protected by 3 patents after 5 million of research and development. And this innovative membrane use 4 cumulative effects to dramatically attenuate sound. The first one, it's introduce thickness of air into the water, and this thickness of air will introduce a change of impedance, and this change of impedance is physically responsible for high value of mitigation. The second effect is the capability of the membrane to be deformed and to transform a part of the acoustic energy into a kinetic movement of the membrane itself. The third one, inside the panel, we've got 20,000 yarn per square meter that create a meta-acoustic material. So it means a network of yarn that make, I would say, the sound lost into the membrane. And the last effect is the fact that we've got inside the membrane a huge value of like a bubbling belt that create a lot of bubble between the pile and the membrane, and that allow also to reinforce the level of mitigation. Indeed, with these 4 effects, we can reach 99.9 up to 99.9% in noise pressure level reduction, even for low frequency 94% of low reduction, which is fairly good for the targets to reduce the huge impact of this coastal work, whatever it is for harbor works. So we develop for harbor works a solution named Blue Shield, which is something like a curtain that contain for a long time a huge area, and we hope to demonstrate this solution in 2025 in Montreal, then in the Miami Harbor. We've got a tender for this. And also, which is the most the main market, the main impact today is a version for pile driving that isolates single pile with a sort of socks for a couple of ore, which mostly used for offshore wind farm installation.
I'm interested in these bubbles in this air pocket. So how does that work? What is the role of air underwater? Like, how does that help?
In fact, it's a physical parameters when you change from the water to the air. The speed of the noise is changing. There is a ratio of around 4.3 time between air and water sound propagation. And physically, this creates what we call physically a change of impedance, a break of impedance, that is responsible for one of the main effects of the Subsea Quieter mitigation. And on our side, we've got 2 rows of air into the water. So it means that we've got 4 change of impedance that increase by 4 this huge mitigation value.
So I think to a lot of us, this is the first time we're hearing about a very specific noise quieter system. What are other people trying to do? Why is this revolutionary?
In fact, the main new system right now is a bubble curtain. So the bubble curtain is very simple. You take a pipe, you make a lot of hole inside, you inject a lot of air, and you will create a curtain of bubbles that will go from the seabed up to the surface. This is I would say the oldest solution, knowing that the regulation concerning noise is a very new one, because the first regulation only have a couple of years, so that's not a whole technology, but it's the oldest one. The problem with this bubble curtain is several of them. The acoustic efficiency is not so good, so you have to put most that only one. You put 2 or 3 big concentric big bubble curtain. Then you have to feed in continuous way this water, the flow rate of air, into the pipe. So it means that you have to have a lot of compressors, a lot of vessels to carry on these compressors, a lot of gasoline. To make an example, for a classical offshore wind farm, around 60 wind turbine to install, you have to get around 40 compressors, and you will consume around 400,000 liters of gasoline. So that's very huge quantity of air that you have to create, and the cost is also high because you have to make vessel and things like this to carry on all this type of thing. So that's the cost issue, the efficiency issue, but there are also other, I would say, drawbacks. One of the main drawbacks, if you get current, the bubble will be taken by this current and will not keep around the pile. It means that the mitigation will not be good enough around the pile itself. And the last drawbacks of bubble curtain, if when the depth is increasing, the efficiency of bubble curtain is decreasing. So you've got a drawback also for big monopile. So that's the main solution, I would say, currently. And the other one that is also under development or under testing is mostly based on, there are 4 of them, excluding the Subsea Quieter, that is currently developed. But all of them have drawbacks concerning their costs, around between 15 and 30 million for one wind farm, around their efficiency, around their capability to resist to tide and currents, around the capability to be used at high depth, around their noise efficiency. And that's where we can bring a new solution, which is fairly low cost, because we do not have to, the air isn't trapped into the membrane, so we do not have to supply in a continuous way, meaning that we need only 1% of the energy compared to a bubble curtain. The efficiency is also much better. We do not have any effect of current depth and whatever. So we try to bring the best of the military technology for submarine into this market, which is not only a market, but which is mostly a very impactful field, and that we have to find a solution for them in order to avoid the huge impact of the future huge level of installation of offshore wind farms.
So how did you get interested in solving this ocean noise problem?
I was born in Calais, which is in the north of France. It's also it's a coastal harbor, very well known in Europe, at least, because it's one of the main ports for passenger transportation from Europe to UK. So in order to answer your question, so I really a truly lover of the ocean. I was born so in Calais, coastal city. My childhood and my hobbies were always been related to sea, whatever it is, sea hunting, fishing, boating, snorkeling, diving, or whatever. And here in France, we've got two French TV reportages that fascinated me. The first one, I know that probably some of you can know it. It's Captain Cousteau Ocean Odyssey, which is a French famous.
You're not the first to mention him on this show.
It's a famous one, and when I was young, I was looking at his fascinating marine ecosystem discovery for at least 20 years, because I think it's around 40 years of Captain Cousteau Odyssey. So that's a very impactful on my childhood and on my willingness to protect ecosystem. And the second one, which is less known in outside France, but it's very well known in France, was also a sea magazine named Thalassa, which is a magazine of the sea, which is each Friday evening during 37 years with Georges Pernoud, which is the other French famous guy around maritime activity. So I would say that since my very beginning, I was looking these two magazine and TV, and that's one of my main the main origin of my willingness. But then after at 10, so 14 years ago, I dived for the very first time in the Mediterranean Sea and discovered that for the very first time, the level of plastic pollution, which is so huge at the time. Then we've got in France some big events, and the French seas have suffered several oil spills like Amoco Cadiz, Erika, and Prestige that pollute a lot the Britain part or the west part of the French, with a huge level of pollution for this. And all of this type explain why I would like to do something to avoid this impact. And that's why I work for marine activities, whatever it is, for Beneteau, which is a leisure vessel company, for Naval Group, which is a maritime naval defense company. During 15 years, I discovered a lot on maritime field, evolution, trade, technologies, but also innovation, because I was in charge of maritime clean tech for 7 years for Naval Group. That's allowed me to create a huge network in the EU partners and now in the US and Canadian one. And that's allowed for me to discover a lot and to read a lot about the several human impact of human on ecosystem, of course, noise, but also ship strike, litters, or whatever. And all of this make me deciding to create Greenov in order to try to bring my I would say my willingness, my commitment, and also my technologies accumulated during 15 years of maritime expertise in order to fulfill one simple target, to avoid that oceans become blue desert in the next 20 years.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
I'd like to thank Gulf of Maine Research Institute and Bold Ocean Ventures for their support of Happy Planet podcast. GMRI and Bold Ocean Ventures have partnered to create a mission-driven venture capital fund supporting the growth of innovative, sustainable, ocean-related businesses.
Listeners may remember Patrick Breeding, who was on our show last year to talk about Marin Skincare and its clinically proven formula that uses glycoproteins from Maine lobsters to treat eczema and dry, damaged skin. This company has since become wildly successful with this lobster lotion, and Patrick is inviting listeners to a 20% discount on their products by using the coupon code HAPPYPLANET on their website, marinskincare.com. I use this product myself, and I highly recommend it. Recently, you won the Sustainable Ocean Alliance pitch contest for the Subsea Quieter.
Yeah.
And I have the great pleasure of being on the selection committee. I'm not on the jury, but I'm on the pre-selection committee. And can you tell me a little bit about that experience and what that does for you?
Yeah, it was a very good experience. So we have to fulfill first to apply first for getting the to be selected, and I would like to thank also you to select us for this first for this first
First round.
yeah, first one, and then we've got a presentation in Paris, so that will be also among finalists. So that's also a very good and a very good day, and even with a lot of pressure, of course. It was a big day for us, and very well organized and fantastic for this. And we won three prizes. The prestigious first one, of course, but also the prize for biodiversity and a special France prize. So that's the very first time that a project won three prizes. So that's a very fantastic moment for us, full of pleasure and of course of emotion. But the main thing is also that it can also help, and this also talk is also important. It can also help people to be aware of this impact of underwater noise, because to be fully honest, most of people do not know this issue, because noise is not something that you can see.
Yeah, I think that's so important, that we really have to understand a lot about the biology of these other creatures and why it's important for their understanding of their environment, for their feeding, for their family pods to stay together. I mean, the impact is definitely far-reaching. So so tell us more for funds that might be listening, and what stage of development is the Subsea Quieter right now?
Yeah, so solution is starting to be recognized, of course, but we still need a lot of other. We signed a JP with three big players: Total, Equinor, and EDF Renewables. One is Equinor USA, which is in the US, but also EDF, which is also in the US. And we are discussing with five others. So for the Blue Shield version, which is for Arbor, we hope to get the first demonstration in the port of Trois-Rivières in Quebec in 2025.
Oh, nice.
And then we are crossing fingers for a first offer that we done for the Miami Harbor. So we hope that the first real scale demonstration will be in the US for the Blue Shield. And for the pile driving, your plan is also to make the demonstration of the final demonstration of the technology on a real monopile by the end of 2026. We are also finalists in the US funding from the DOE, and we will have the final answer in September. And we hope that we will be able to get this fund in order to be able to come and to settle the company in the US, and to develop a local supply chain, and to demonstrate locally that our solution is one good solution also for US offshore wind farm, which is, as you know, a great project and a numerous project in the US. So we are waiting and crossing fingers for this good funding, and also then to develop a lot of partnership into the US for supplying, for putting in place, and for using our solution. We are also looking for new GIP partners. We've got a lot of discussion with some of others. We are also raising funds. We are raising 10 million euro funds in order to produce and to finalize all this demonstration. And so that's and of course we still need a high communication environment, because we need, as I said previously, to make people and regulator aware of underwater noise huge impact, which is not so easy to see on more and more countries, in order to avoid the current situation, which is that only a few works use a noise mitigation system because of the price, because of the lack of regulation, because of the lack of knowledge, of awareness. But it's a real issue that we need to fight against by also working on the awareness issue.
Well, you mentioned that there's been legislation in the EU for just a few years. What is the US climate policy right now for noise in the ocean?
The US is one of the main countries in the world around the issue of underwater noise emission regulation. I would say that Canada, Europe, Japan, Taiwan, and Korea, and also a bit of Australia is, I would say, the most advanced company in the world into this scope of work. So US is already, I would say, well involved. And if the DOE decided to fund a demonstration project for a noise mitigation system, it's because they are aware of this issue.
Well, I'm curious to see what happens with our policies if we have a change in executive leadership here. I've reached out to Susan Collins, who's a senator from my state, who's a Republican, to ask what their climate policies will be, or if she could talk about it. She has not responded, but I hope she does, because she's actually very well versed on maritime policy, and I'd love to hear from her.
That's also because we've got the same issue.
I was just going to get to it. I know that Emmanuel Macron, love him or hate him, he has done a lot to push the startup economy. I feel like the germs, the seeds of that started with Sarkozy, but now you've got these big, powerful engines now behind the sort of the new culture of tech innovation. You just had a very close election, and now you've got a bit of a blocked situation in the parliament in France. What's going to happen to climate tech and environmental tech in France, do you think?
It's very complex to answer your question. The first thing that we can say is that we still have at the European level, I would say, a very active policy, whatever innovation with Horizon Europe program, funding program, with a Green Deal issue at the European Commission level. So I would say that at the European level, the willingness is still very strong to protect the ecosystem, whatever there are, and then to develop innovation, whatever they are. So I will say that at the European level, there is no issue. That's true that, but it was just yesterday that the votation occurred. So it's very difficult to know what will be the future of France, because we've got 3 blocks. None of the blocks can alone manage the government. So the first things will be to get a government, so to get an agreement between at least 2 of the 3 blocks, and it will be probably very difficult. So yeah, very difficult to answer you. Hopefully that it will we will be able to continue to develop this clean tech and this high level of technology in the next years, at least at the European level, but and hopefully in the other countries, because we would like to settle one subsidiary in the Quebec and one in the US in the next year. So that would be also a way of moving up to countries that also would like to develop their own activity concerning innovation and ecosystem protection, including the blue economy and the blue protection of seas. But yeah, difficult to answer to your question for France, but pretty sure that we will find a solution in Europe and in other countries.
Well, there you go. That's a good reason to stay in Europe.
That's a reason to stay, but it's also a reason to come and to see and to help also the US market and the US customers that will have the same regulation issue. And if we can bring the solution in Europe, we start to pile without any noise mitigation system for a couple of years. So that's true that the US have the chance to come a bit later and to be able to directly use some good system in order to protect their maritime ecosystem, which is, as I said, much more complex because of the wealth occurrence into your seas.
Interesting. We're seeing ocean acidification happening at an unprecedented rate. Waters are warming. Although this year in our area, they're actually relatively cool for a change. But we know that this is not a linear path, and that there's going to be some jagged edges. How do you feel? You're in it. What do you think? How are we doing?
To be fully honest, the current situation in the world and in France, with populism, wars, destruction, and fully a lack of real environmental priority to really do the things in order to reduce our emission, to save our planet, and to save our ocean and ecosystems, with a huge biodiversity crisis and also, of course, the climate crisis, but the biodiversity crisis, which is mostly unknown right now for general public. So all those type of things cannot allow to be very optimistic, to be fully honest. But I try to do my best with Greenov and with the committed team of Greenov to do a piece of cake, to put out the fire like a hummingbird. So I would like to think that this will be enough, but that's weird that I see clear evidence around me that the world is not always going in the right direction.
Well, we have these culture wars in all these countries now. So just so I understand, is the RN, the Rassemblement National, the right party? Um, are I don't want to use the term climate deniers, but it's just too loaded. Are they supportive of climate tech as a mitigation to some of the changes we're seeing, or are they more like our Trump's followers, just really um, denying that there's a problem?
No, it's really not the priority to work on climate and biodiversity and things like this. And just an example, for example, that's not I saw biodiversity, but they announced that they would like to stop all offshore wind farm project in France. Not only offshore but also on land one. And yeah, their priority is clearly not into the environmental issue.
Not renewable.
Not at all.
Well, yeah, right. French don't feel like they have to end their movies on a positive note like we do, so I appreciate you're just straightforward as saying it like you see it. So, do you have advice for entrepreneurs today who are in climate tech?
Yeah, I've got some, of course. I'm not so whole into the scope of work, but I will tell them that the blue economy is booming, which is very, very true. Huh? People are beginning to understand, even if it's too slowly, but are beginning to understand that human activity can no longer be carried out to the detriment of the animals and on the oceans. So that's really a booming sector. The road ahead is not an easy one, of course, unlike all entrepreneurship, but that is a reason of the noblest and most vital one to work on the protection of the planet of ecosystems. So it's really a good thing. Ocean really need new talent for committed and useful life. Excuse me. So that's really important to get some new people committed into this scope of work of developing solutions to protect the planet, the ecosystem, whatever it is, land or seas one. And finally, I will also tell them that the door is open at Greenov because, as you know, and as I say, we are a startup studio, so we can also help them to incubate their own project.
Well, that's great. That's great news. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to say?
To summarize like this, I would say that it's really important that people make this topics of underwater noise more known. So don't hesitate to communicate on this issue if you are willing to make this big issue more known around the general public. And I would say that we really need to work in order to come back to what I would say also Commander Cousteau said, is that the word of silence, and to come back to this word of silence is a very important issue, and that's an issue that need a lot of commitment on at the whole level to avoid that they become a blue desert.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Damien, for coming on the show today. It's just been a real pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you, Abigail, because it's a very important podcast, and I'm very happy to be able to join these topics, and hope you to follow, to continue to develop this huge important issue of protecting the planet.
Let's hope that Damien's solution can bring much needed quiet to the ocean so that its inhabitants can enjoy a more peaceful existence. Thank you once again for listening. Please follow Happy Planet wherever you tune in and leave us a rating and review. It really does help new listeners discover the show. Happy Planet was reported and hosted by me, Abigail Carroll. I'm also the executive producer. George Brandel Egloff created our theme music. Learn more about my work and get in touch by visiting happyplanetpodcast.com.